Welcome back, everybody, to the Dragon's Lair. My name is Wade, and this is my show, There Is Only Lore in the Grim Dark of the 41st Millennium. There is only lore. So this is my second video about the timeline. There's a lot to go in the timeline. Go back and watch video number 1, which basically covers who the Old Ones are and who the C'tan or Catan are. This is the next step where we talk about the necrontyr. So you can find us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and you can find us as the Space Dragon Space Liar or the _dragons _liar. Let's get into it because we only got 10 minutes. All right. So a long time ago, there used to be a species, a humanoid species known as the necrontyr, that lived in the halo star region of the galaxy. They were known as the necrontyr. They lived very short, painful lives as the star in their solar system was very harsh and caused cancers, illness, and radiation sickness because it put out a lot of ionized radiation, ion radiation. The necrontyr cities were monuments to the dead, and every citizen understood that life was short and glory was found in the immortalization after death. They believed that they were just passing through life for a very short time. Eventually, they escaped their homeworld and colonized other worlds and other systems and things like that. However, they could never escape the radiation sickness and the cancers caused by their homeworld. They never got over it. It was a part of their DNA now. This was the time that they invented technologies like living metal and stasis abilities. This was a key part of their ships, so their ships could like regenerate themselves, as well as they put themselves into stasis so that they could sleep long times between long journeys because they didn't have faster than light speed. This was how necrodermis became. This was the beginning of the technology of necrodermis. Originally, their culture was split into dynasties led by pharaohs. The dynasties answer to the three most powerful dynasties. Together, those three powerful dynasties were known as the Triarch. The Triarch itself was led by an individual known as the Silent King, who ruled but never spoke. So the other two dynasties that were a part of the Triarch were like advisors. I assume there was some sort of vote system that they had. Eventually, the necrontyr, in their expansions, met the Old Ones. Okay, so check out the bad, inaccurate picture of the Old One, the amphibian, reptile, frog people. That's not a very over there. It's not a very accurate picture because no one really knows what they look like. The necrontyr begged the Old Ones for help in healing their cancers and their illnesses, and the Old Ones declined to share their knowledge and help the necrontyr, and this hard-hearted refusal gravely offended the necrontyr, and in an instant, it was an insult that would not go unanswered. This was the first steps to the war in heaven. Soon, conflict broke out among the necrontyr themselves, and their own hatred started to poison their soul as a species. They began to spiritually match themselves in their physical forms. They became ugly and hateful spiritually as they were physically. The infighting became known as the Wars of Succession. The Triarch understood that they had lost the unity that had brought them together earlier in their history that had led them to colonize the stars. And in order for the people to face a true enemy, the Triarch officially declared war on the Old Ones, and thus the war in heaven went into full swing, with all of the necrontyr being united behind the Triarch to fight the Old Ones. Dynasties who had rebelled and seceded were welcomed back with amnesty, and the might of the necrontyr once again was focused and in full force. So now we go into the war in heaven. So you know the actors. And this is a possible depiction. This is an artist rendering of the necrontyr while they were alive. Who knows? It was millions of years ago. The records are lost. The only records of the war in heaven are chronicled in an ancient text kept by the Eldari. There supposedly are other records that are in the Black Library, but good luck getting in there. One thing was abundantly clear, that the necrontyr could not win on their own. A very important fact to understand at this point in time, that the warp is a mirror dimension to our own. It's also known as the Sea of Souls. When souls die here, they cross over to the warp, also known as the Sea of Souls. Normally, the sea is relatively tranquil, as the flow of souls into it is steady and constant. Even the death of entire worlds is but a drop in the bucket when considering the vastness of all of the galaxy. The war in heaven is what began to transform the Sea of Souls, as trillions began to flow into the warp at a pace never seen before. So it created turbulence and chaos in the warp. But wait, there's more. Turn off. Okay. The necrontyr were outmatched in every way, and they were eventually pushed back to their home system, where they became little more than a hassle rather than a threat to the old ones. For a millennia, the necrontyr sat in exile on their homeworlds, and slowly but surely their hatred of the old ones became a hatred for all non-necrontyr life. Stewing in this hatred, it created an intense discontent and brought about a more terrible and vastly more devastating second war of succession among the necrontyr. The Triarch struggled for a way to keep order, but it was also clear that at this point in history, the Old Ones could have easily caused the necrontyr to disappear into extinction. At this time, at this all-time low, a savior arrived to rescue the necrontyr and help them avenge themselves. There are many separate accounts of how the necrontyr first contacted the Cetan. Some say they were discovered by advanced technologies, and others say it was the pure hatred that had poisoned the souls of the necrontyr that drew the Cetan to them. No one knows for sure. Only a book in the Black Library under extreme guard seems to make the situation clear. Before the interactions with the Cetan, before the interactions with the necrontyr, the Cetan didn't really care anything about mortal creatures and what was going on and wars and who wouldn't help who. They didn't care. They were very happy just sucking on stars. However, they were drawn to the necrontyr with malicious intent on a scope no one understood. The necrontyr bowed down to them and their godlike power, and they worshipped them as gods, even saying that one of them, the Nightbringer, resembled their god of death. Eventually, bodies were made for the Cetan out of this living metal, and what became known as necrodermis. So then eventually the Cetan learned to manifest into physical forms, because originally they were like clouds, like vaporous clouds floating out in space with consciousness and vast powers. But they learned to pour themselves into these bodies, these necrodermises. As they began to do this, they learned that there was a whole reality that they had not considered yet. And it was full of living beings. And the soul energy of living beings was just as attractive to them as the energy of a star. It was very palatable and very tasty to them. It was at this time that the Cetan, who would later become known as the Deceiver, sought an audience with the Silent King. He spun a tale that cannot be confirmed, but what he told the Silent King is that the Cetan had fought a war with the Old Ones long ago. They had not won, and they had sworn revenge and were looking for an ally that would help them. The Cetan offered the Silent King immortality, to heal all of his people's illnesses, and to be allies with them and fight the Old Ones and defeat the Old Ones together. It took months for the Silent King to debate amongst his court, but finally agreed to the Star God's terms. The Cetan delivered much of what was promised, but they strode amongst their new allies as living gods. This is when the worship of the Cetan became widespread, and the necrontyr as a culture was now being steered and directed as the Cetan wished. Blinded by revenge and the poison that had gotten into their soul, the necrontyr were then lured into slavery by the Cetan, and the Cetan began to devour their bioelectric energy. Thank you for watching. This has been There Is Only Lore.